I've only had the Canon R5 for 3 weeks, and it's been the most stressful but best things that I've done in a long time. Say hi. Hi. Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Nate Gaffney, and today I'm gonna be talking about my experience with the Canon R5 in the short 3 weeks that I've had it. Some things have gone wrong that I feel I need to share with you before you make your purchase with the Canon R5, or if you already have it, maybe this will help you figure out some things that you're stuck on. I ordered my camera from vistech.ca 3 weeks ago. I'm based out of New Brunswick, Canada. It is freaking cold here right now. It took a while for my camera to get here, and that was kind of the first frustration that I had experienced. Canada Post took a long time to get my camera actually delivered to me. The problem was somebody had COVID in the office and they weren't doing deliveries. Understandable. I just wish I would have been informed instead of, marking the walls waiting for the camera to get here. So that being said, I ordered the camera from Vistech and it burned a hole in my wallet. Guys, this camera is expensive. It's a little cheaper in the States. However, here in Canada, it's over $5,000, and that just hurts a lot, especially when you're buying other things with it, like a lens. I got a new backpack and a few other accessories. This leads me to the first problem I experienced with the Canon R5. With my Canon R5, I purchased the 24-70 2.8mm lens, and I also purchased a battery grip. Like I mentioned before, I do photography, and having the battery grip seemed like a really good decision for me to make, especially when I'm out in the field and I want to take vertical shots for social media or whatever. The battery grip allows you to take a photo from the shutter button up here on the right hand corner. This is where the problem comes in. I get the camera and the battery grip and all the other accessories on the same day. I unbox everything, it's all shiny, it looks amazing, I'm so excited. What happens next? I take out my battery grip, I put in my batteries ever so carefully the exact way it's indicated on the battery grip. I slide in the battery grip, I do everything that I was supposed to do right, and when I press the power button, nothing happens. I did what anybody would do. I spent 6 hours that day trying to figure out what was wrong with the battery grip or the camera. During that state of trying to figure things out, I did not want to believe that there was something wrong with my Canon R5. I was just against the idea. I was convinced it was the battery grip. It had to have been, because the batteries worked in the Canon R5. There must have been something wrong with the grip. So I spent 6 hours that day and I was trying to get this grip to work, and it never did. I followed every single step I could have. I watched YouTube videos, I read through threads, I called Canon Canada and had a conversation with a technician over the phone. Nothing was working with this battery grip. So I sent the grip back to Vistech. They email me, they tell me their technicians are taking a look at the grip and they're trying to replicate the problem that I was having. Turns out the grip works fine for them. And that's when my heart sunk and I knew it was the Canon R5 that was having the problem. This Canon R5 I'm filming this video on, I actually have to send this camera back to Vistech, and they're gonna take the battery grip and my camera and run a diagnosis and see what the heck is going on here. Hopefully they can figure it out, and hopefully it doesn't take a month for me to get my camera back, because what's so discouraging about this is that I bought this camera, you spend all this money, thousands of dollars, so that you can create content with your gear. You get it, something doesn't work, and you've got to wait longer. It's really, really aggravating. So next thing that I did with the Canon R5 was I field tested it. I took it out, I got some incredible video, some amazing photos. For those of you who don't know, this Canon camera has a 45 megapixel CMOS sensor. It takes incredible photos. It also can shoot in 8K at 30 frames per second and 4K at 120 frames per second. This thing is a beast. So naturally, when you get this camera, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go out and just create the best content I've ever created. So I take it out and I'm shooting with it. All of a sudden, the camera freezes up on me. And it didn't just freeze up on me. If I turn the power button off, the camera wouldn't turn off. I would still see the LCD screen stuck on whatever image it was left at. So I had to actually take the battery out just to turn the camera off. This was a big problem. I thought maybe it was just too cold outside. I mean, that day it was cold. It was like -30 outside here in New Brunswick, brutal weather. But then I took it out a few days later. It was about -12 or 15 outside. I was messing around with the camera and same thing, it froze up on me. During that day, the camera had only actually spent about 20 minutes in total outside, and that wasn't even consecutively. That was putting the camera away, taking it out, using it, putting it away. The camera should be able to handle that sort of temperature pretty easily. So I knew that there was something wrong here. So after a little bit of research on the situation, I found out that the Canon R5's latest firmware is actually causing this issue for a lot of users. It's the firmware update 1.5.0, and I had updated my camera when I got it to the latest firmware. That was also something that I had tried to see maybe if the battery grip wasn't compatible with the latest firmware. That wasn't the issue. Anyway, back to the freezing problem. Firmware 1.5.0 actually caused my camera to freeze up a ton of times. I actually took the camera and I downgraded it back to the 1.4 version before the 1.5 update. And to achieve this downgrading process isn't as easy as it sounds. You don't just take a card and put the firmware on the card, put the card in the camera and update it. You actually need to have the 1.5 version on one card and the 1.4 version on another card, and they both need to be in the camera. And then you need to do this crazy maneuver thing with it. There's videos on it. Maybe I'll link one in the description for you if you're having this problem, in order to get it to downgrade to 1.4. So that was another problem that I had with the Canon R5 within the first 3 weeks of owning it, was that the firmware actually froze my camera when in use. And for a while there, I actually didn't know what was causing it until I had done some research and found out that it was the firmware 1.5 that was causing the problem. So I will move on to kind of some more positive things here now. The quality of the video on this camera is absolutely stunning. I've been taking video with this camera for 3 weeks now, and every time I do, I can't believe the quality of these images, and also the camera's ability to autofocus on your subjects. It's just mind-blowing. But using this camera is extremely satisfying. You get really, really stable images, and you do have the ability to shoot 4K 120 frames per second, giving you these beautiful slow motion cinematic shots. I'm very, very pleased with the video side of this camera. I haven't experienced any overheating problems, and I know that was a big problem with the Canon R5 for a while. Now, the camera was released in July 2020, and so since then there's probably been a few updates that kind of help mitigate that overheating problem. And also, like I said, it's freezing cold here, and so I haven't really experienced that overheating problem. The video side of things have been fantastic so far. Moving on to photo, again, this camera is a beast at taking photos. With a 45 megapixel CMOS sensor in this camera, you are getting fantastic images with this camera. So a side note here, if you use Adobe Lightroom, uploading your photos from the Canon R5 to Lightroom, you actually don't get the greatest color profile if you just leave it as default. You'll notice in Lightroom that you can change the color profile of your image, and the default one that Lightroom chooses for you isn't the best way to bring out the full potential of the photos that you took with the Canon R5. So if you're noticing that some of the colors just seem flat, or you're not satisfied with how the image looks, try changing the color profile of the photos that you take with the Canon R5, and you'll probably see a big difference. But this camera can capture some amazing detail, and you're able to really, really bring back a lot of that detail in the post-image processing. I love this camera's ability to take photos, and that's a big part of my career. So taking photos is very, very important to me. The lens that I chose with this camera was the 24-70 f2.8. Now, I got this lens because I knew I'd be doing video work and I'd be doing photo, and it would take me a little while to buy another lens because everything is so expensive. I wanted to get a good kind of hybrid lens, and this lens has been fantastic for it. Being able to stay at aperture f2.8 all the way through that focal range, you can get some amazing photos and some amazing videos with this setup. And I'm very, very glad that I chose to go with this lens for the first lens that I have with the camera. Also, you're capturing so many megapixels per photo, you're able to punch and crop in quite a bit with your images. If you're trying to take some wildlife stuff, if you can get close enough, you might be able to punch in just enough to get something that you're satisfied with. Why did I choose this camera? Well, I chose the Canon R5 because I wanted a good hybrid camera. I saw that the camera had the ability to shoot in 4K at 120 frames per second. I saw that it could shoot in 8K if I ever wanted it. And I saw the megapixel count for the photos and the amount of amazing reviews. People are raving about this camera. I knew it was time to pull the trigger. I'm also at a point in my career where investing into the business makes sense. If I buy a camera like this, I know that it will pay itself off in time. It's just a matter of time to get there. So for me, it really, really made sense to get this camera. I wanted the ability to make great YouTube videos that I can sit here and talk to the camera, and I have no problem with autofocusing. I know this camera is catching my eye at every moment, and it's fantastic. I wanted to see some amazing photos come out of this thing, and so far, I haven't really been let down. Should you buy this camera? camera. I would say you should buy this camera if you are looking to take your professional career to the next level. If you're very, very serious about photography, this camera is an excellent option for you. I wouldn't use this necessarily as your A camera for video. If you just solely want to make videos, this might not be your best bet. However, this is a beast hybrid camera, so if you're looking to do both like I was, then it seems to be a really, really good choice. If you're a hobbyist and you make videos and photos on the weekend and it's just kind of for fun, I would suggest maybe looking at maybe a totally different camera altogether. I built up pretty much my entire photography career using the Canon EOS 6D. This camera was a beast for me. I created a website with this camera. I got featured all across Canada with this camera, taking wildlife photos and portraits, and I made myself a lot of work with the 6D, and I used that camera for over 5 years, and I really, really liked it. It was rugged. It was just time for me to upgrade. So if you're looking to upgrade in your business, reinvest in your business, you're very, very serious about photography and creating video, this camera might be for you. If you're somebody who's just a hobbyist and you're looking to get something a little bit nicer, the Canon R5 might be a little bit too much in comparison to your interest level or the amount of time that you put into photography and videography based on its price point. In conclusion, I am very happy with the Canon R5. However, I am not happy with the start that I've had with this camera. The past 3 weeks have been incredibly stressful, from waiting for the package to deliver, which isn't the R5's fault, to having something go wrong with the battery grip, or actually what seems to be the camera now at this point, to having some firmware problems, camera freezing up on me. Really, the problem here is that it's been a learning curve, and by luck of the draw, I seem to have got some sort of faulty product. Does that make the Canon R5 a bad camera in general? No, it just means that my experience with this camera so far hasn't been the greatest. However, I know that once these problems fizzle out, I should be good. I shouldn't have to deal with any of these problems. It's just kind of a matter of getting on my feet with this gear and kind of, getting all those problems out of the way and paying attention to new firmware updates and those sorts of things. There's a great community out there. If you have problems like I did with the firmware, just look up a tutorial and you should be fine. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Woliwon, welcome to the channel. If you're new, I talk about all things photography, videography. I share cinematic shorts that I make. I'm gonna be talking about different gear that you can buy and use with your camera, or just reviews of the gear that I have bought myself. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.